us, and hey, that's a mighty sharp little minivan.
What a night fight for the fallen part one has been, gentlemen.
And look who's behind the wheel. That's Trent's mom, Sue. She's driven the Challengers.
Have fun.
Have fun. If they
Greggy! Come here. I need a kiss. Good luck. Love you.
Kind of tough to keep your Mad Dog face on.
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Keira, Phil, and AJ. How's everybody doing after a cool, awesome episode of Dynamite, Fyter Fest, whatever you want to call it?
Doing good. It was a great show. We were talking on Monday about like what would be the stinker of the night. I don't think we really got a stinker. I don't think there was one that was real bad.
Yeah, it was a good show. There was like exciting stuff happening, but I feel like it wasn't great. I don't think it was like great, but
it definitely didn't live up to the hype that we all kind of created for it. And we definitely didn't make that up ourselves, you know.
No.
They had hyped it up for the last however many weeks that it was going to be a big event. And the first night, and Phil, you had said it was kind of a stacked card for the first night, but even the first night wasn't the best.
I agree. I feel like it was a good night of wrestling. It wasn't a great night of wrestling because there wasn't that, I hate to use the term, the must-see moment. Like, every wrestling show should have that one moment that has you talking about it for the next 6 days until the next show comes. And we thought a few different scenarios where we were going to have that moment, and we didn't really get it. It was a good night of wrestling, solid wrestling, but with the storytelling aspect kind of lacked this week.
Yeah, I have to agree that, and I guess that would sort of make sense if it's the big blow-off event. You would kind of be the end of stories in a sense, but even the matches, like the match quality to some of the matches didn't necessarily live up to maybe what we were expecting. And I don't know. Maybe it was just the fact, like the fact that they changed the next week's title match in the middle of the show kind of made everything feel really awkward too. Kind of put a damper on the rest of the event. It kind of just put me, because I would still be way excited for next week, kind of rolling off of what this week was, but this week almost felt like the end, because there's not a whole, like, there is stuff to look forward to next week. I don't want to downplay like Fyter Fest is over, but there's no more championship matches. I mean, well, there are, but they just tossed them together now.
Yeah, I as far as match quality though, I would contest that I enjoyed all of these matches to some extent. None of them I was like, wow, that sucked. My biggest issue with the match quality on tonight's show was really the matches didn't have enough time that I feel like they should have. But other than that, I thought the quality was fine. None of them was like, wow, this sucked, or I didn't care about this, or I was bored silly.
It's going to be even more difficult next week because tonight we only had 5 matches, and next week we have 6 matches.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting on which matches get timed out at what length. I'm guessing the Archer-Joey match isn't going to go very long. I don't really know what's going on with the Nyla match. I don't expect that to go very long unless there's some huge shocking thing that happens. So I guess it will be formatted in a way that gives the times to the matches that are appropriate. But I do agree with you, AJ, that some of these matches could have been made better with longer lengths, especially the main event. Main event was like maybe 17 minutes, and it did feel short.
It was 15 minutes, actually, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the biggest issue with the matches, I think, was not even the sense that they were bad. It's that they didn't really have the pay-per-view feel to them. Even if they were a little bit longer than usual, they didn't have a whole lot of crazy excitement to them. I will give you the main event match was decent, but what you would expect from a pay-per-view like this, that's what they have built this up to be. And then it doesn't really deliver in that capacity, at least not for me. The show wasn't bad, though. It's not like, in terms of regular Dynamites, this would have been a really good show. But the fact that we hyped it up as its own thing is what kind of drags it down a tiny bit. But I think that's, like, that's just brief complaining, honestly, because when I look through what we watched tonight, like, it was a good show. There's nothing major to complain about. It's just kind of the Moxley announcement threw me off, and then they obviously threw together a tag team match because of that. So we're in the main event, and we're like taking in the fact Mox isn't going to be there next week, taking in the fact that it's going to be some random private party versus Omega and Hangman match, and who knows, maybe they do it next week.
Yeah, maybe they do it next week just because they want something big for the second show and they feel like they didn't have that tonight. But I don't know. That's kind of weird because you could have just made this show good.
It would be a
or
WWE
better.
thing to do, to like force that big moment into next week's show, because
Yeah.
but then you would wonder, were they planning on doing it this week and just decided to do the moment now?
I'll have more comments on that when we get to that main event. But I don't believe next week is the right time to do it. I feel like if it's got to happen, it's going to be in the main event of whatever show it happens on, and that doesn't feel like a main event match to me.
That's true.
That
That's
is fair. But at the same time, what next week would you argue against it? Like, you could say Orange Cassidy versus Jericho.
I would probably say the 8-man tag. But today, when I looked at the 2 cards this morning, I thought that would be the opener when we had the world title match as the obvious main event. But now it could easily be the main event match.
They were showing it when they ran down the matches, I think, as the last match, if I remember correctly.
And it would make sense.
So, yeah, I'm with you on that. It's FTR and the Young Bucks. They're not against each other, but it's still a big name match.
Yeah, but you still have the like the fact that it is a title match. I wouldn't argue or be upset if the tag title match was still placed above it on the card.
That's fair. I agree. I agree with you in principle, but I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, but who knows? I didn't think they were going to do it this week, I thought this week would be the TNT title match, but we'll get into all of that as we run through the show. Let's get into the actual show. Let's talk about Fyter Fest. The show opens. We have Chris Jericho get his grand entrance, joining commentary. Did a great job, as always. From here, we just get MJF making his entrance. He then does a pre-match promo, and MJF always delivers in the promo category, and the match itself really delivered as well. I thought this, of all matches on the show, really stood out as like my probably favorite match because it actually did someone for the people in the match.
We talked about how this was either gonna like blow our expectations away or just be exactly what like we thought. And I feel like this really did well. This was a great match. Aside from, I think, as Phil mentioned on Twitter, MJF's really weird attire.
Nah, that attire was fire, bro.
It was not.
I agree with Andrew, man. That was good. It was good.
No, it was. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit.
Pink, and I liked the scarf, but I didn't like the green line. I think
Kira's right. Kira's totally right.
Nah, it was fire, bro.
I did like the pink.
Real men wear pink.
But with green,
he looked weird. Great. He looked like $1 million.
Anyways, this was a really exciting match. And like you and me were talking about how Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus could definitely get the win here because one, they've been losing to them. They really needed their win back or to get the win in the first place. And two, depending on how you play it, it doesn't make MJF look as bad as if he lost in a one-on-one match.
100%. It was done in a way where Jurassic Express gets the victory that they've been needing for weeks and weeks, and at the same time doesn't snuff out MJF's momentum at all.
Yeah.
Sets up for a little weird chemistry between him and Wardlow. They've been kind of teasing that they might break each other off. I don't know if it's the best idea at this time. I agree
with that.
I don't know, with so many like big guys in AEW as singles wrestlers, I don't know if Wardlow, if it's a good time for him to do that, if he might like fall by the wayside.
He would get lost in the shuffle, yeah.
I swear, because like Lance Archer kind of has gotten lost in the shuffle, and he is infinitely more entertaining for me at this point than Wardlow.
Totally agree.
I don't think Archer got lost in the shuffle, but...
Oh.
I mean, if you want to consider him coming out and beating up some random person every week, like him sustaining
Joey
his
Janela is not a random person.
He might as well be.
What?
Might as well be.
Damn, I don't know if I agree with that, but...
I mean, they say Joey Janela's a bad boy, so I mean...
He's a bad boy.
He's a bad boy, Phil.
They do say that.
And and I actually just recently watched his video where like he jumped off the building.
Oh yeah, she watched the Joey
So
Janela
now-
documentary.
Oh, nice.
Kenny Johnson, and I it's on YouTube. I think that he could last 5 minutes. I don't know if he could win, but I think he could still.
Damn, after watching the Joey Janela documentary, that's your positive response is he could last maybe 5 minutes?
Well, that was the Twitter question
Well,
I
he
posted.
looks like he's pretty tough. I don't know if it's just like his, like that he just tries to put on that bad guy like look, or that it maybe he actually could. But it would be, I think it would still kind of be interesting, maybe.
Yeah, that's the Twitter question I posted earlier tonight. That
Yeah.
it wasn't that can Joey beat Lance Archer, because I feel like most people who follow the weekly show and are kind of fans like us expect him to lose.
Yeah.
But it was more like, can he make it 5 minutes? Like,
Okay.
is it going to be a total squash,
Yeah.
or is Joey going to like be?
No,
somewhat
they're going to
like
have somewhat of a match, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. I'm sorry, I forgot to reference. That was in what I was referencing to. That's why I said
Strong disagree at this point. Just the fact they added another match next week really makes me feel Janela's the one who's going to get the shaft there. He's going to probably... It'll go from 7 to like 3.
Yeah, they had always had the 6 matches on that card, and the one got replaced. But yes, like I said just a few minutes ago, that's the match I expect to get the least time. You could do the Nyla thing because I don't know what direction that's going to go in, but this seems like an obvious throwaway segment.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really take into consideration the fact it's just a replacement, so it is the same amount of matches, but it is still an extra match compared to this week.
And the Puppy Battle Royal, guys.
Yeah, so there's with all that stuff going on, but there are other matches that you could see getting the cut there, so maybe not, but we'll have to see. This is all bouncing off of the Wardlow MJF match. Before we go on, I do want to say I think Wardlow has potential, even as a singles face character. But this is a story you should build up over time. Like make people become more and more like feeling bad for him, I guess. I don't know exactly the word for it, but there needs to be emotion from the fans for Wardlow, and you want him to snap on MJF officially. And we're getting that a little bit, but the more that he puts up with, the more we'll have that feeling. So
that's true. Yeah.
He was like, "Can you do anything right?"
Yeah, exactly. And the
like,
more that he does that, the more he does that, and the more that we want Wardlow to finally make that turn. If they push it out long enough, it can be really good. But my take on it was, what does Wardlow do after that? If he does turn on MJF, he doesn't fit really the good solo badass role. At least not as far as I can tell. He's not like a Brian Cage level character, and he benefits a lot from MJF talking for him. I've never heard a Wardlow promo, but I can't imagine it's going to be as good as what MJF does for the guys. So.
Has he ever talked?
I don't
believe so.
Probably in real life, but not
if
on
none of us
Dynamite.
can recall a time where
I think he did during the Cody Rhodes match.
Or there was a promo I think where MJF said something to him and he said something back, and it was just short, sweet, like
a one-liner.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk to me like that.
Yes, and we covered the next 2 things that happened. The Puppy Battle Royal was announced, and then Joey Janela and Lance Archer got into a bit of a confrontation. But it was cool to get a little bit more of a build for Janela here. The match still doesn't do a whole lot for me. Again, I think it's going to be one of the ones that's cut short, but at least they're doing more to make it seem semi-important. Janela seems like he doesn't seem like a pussy, at least. Like he's facing a real tough guy who's been built up as a tough guy, and Janela's not backing down. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad they're doing something for it. Like you said, though, it doesn't do a whole lot for me, but it's good they're trying.
Yes. And we get a hype video for Hikaru Shida versus Penelope Ford, and I really appreciated the hype video here. Just made the match feel that a little bit more important. And the match itself was really, really, really good. They really delivered. Yeah. I talked about how the first match helped both teams. This match also helped both participants. I think Penelope looked like a champion almost coming out of it. She looked great. She looked like someone that really could be a force in the division as opposed to what we have been seeing. And that's not to say she's done bad. This is like the final piece to it all. Like the match was so fantastic. I don't have really anything to complain about.
No, I don't either. This was a great match. They hit all their spots. Like we were worried about, like, Penelope sometimes overextends, or at least I was, and goes for things and messes them up. None of that happened here, and what did happen is the other thing we said that might happen is Hikaru Shida really was able to, whenever there was any lacking in this match, carry it, because Hikaru Shida is just a monster, and she can really make any match she's in damn good. And whenever it's supposed to be of any kind of significance, I think she just really brings it out of her and her opponent, and she killed it. Hikaru Shida is a great AEW Women's Champion, and I want her to have a long reign because every single match she puts on is just fantastic.
I agree. I thought this was the best match of the night for me. This really did it for me. It's one of those matches where both people were elevated even more so than they have been in the past few weeks. I thought Penelope Ford really cemented her status as a legitimate contender in the division. It's a division that's not very deep, but now she's in that little pocket of people who are actual contenders and not just somebody who shows up every week. I agree with AJ with Hikaru Shida. She's really brought it during this run she's had, even before she won the title. Really, the match that really stood out for me as the beginning of this run was the match she had against Britt Baker on some random Dynamite.
Yeah, I know exactly what match you're talking about, too.
Middle of the COVID. That was a really great match and really opened my eyes to how great she was. I feel like in this era where a lot of wrestlers have their momentum stopped by all the stuff that's happening outside of their control, like Butcher and the Blade and the Dark Order and all these people, Hikaru Shida has thrived in this era where there's not a lot of people to take attention away from her. She's had the spotlight shined on her this entire time, and she has excelled in the role.
And she's just, like you said, she shines as the women's champion, and she's just so much more believable, I guess you'd say, than Rio was in the same position. Like, Rio put on great matches, but they would always finish really flat because it was like a roll-up or something, where Hikaru matches can finish just as strong as the rest of the matches because she's just that much more believable. She's just a little bit bigger, and because of that, you can just buy her as champion more and buy her dominant victories more. And Penelope looked great. Like, I was so genuinely surprised, I would say, because I've been a fan of Penelope, but that's been more to do with her character work and stuff like that, and you could see the progress in her work as a wrestler, but it's not like I was considering her one of the best women in the company, but she's moving up the ladder. If she can continue to have matches with people who aren't Hikaru Shida, then you have to consider that she's one of the top tier women, and that wasn't necessarily something I considered before. If nothing else, it proves that Hikaru can make anyone look great, and it's something that we've wanted from other champions in AEW, particularly on the male side, that we haven't gotten.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Penelope is moving up on the ladder. I, at one point, really thought that she could win, and then, because she was slamming down Shida, but then Shida slammed her down, and then I was like, oh, never mind. But they had me going for a while because they'd pin them down for 2 counts. The other one would do it back, and then they do it back again. And ever since Penelope beat Rio in Dark, and I'm glad she brought it up because no one really ever talked about it, how she fought Rio and won. I've been a kind of a fan of her and rooting for her, but I am also a big fan of Shida, so I'm glad that she still has the title. But I like that Penelope is moving up more.
Yeah, and I'm until Tessa shows up somewhere, I'm dying for Tessa Blanchard to pull up in AEW and for us to get that match at this point, just because it's probably the best matchup we could get for Hikaru Shida at this point in terms of just women out there. But there are other women on the independent scene as well that could be brought in, because at this point, again, we have to ask the question who they can go to next, because the women's division, while we have made another face in Penelope, it's still pretty shallow. I wouldn't be mad if they went back to this match in some way, but you'd have to rebuild Penelope at least a little bit before just running it right back. But they could do this match again at All Out, and because it was this good, I wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah, even with more time, it would even be better. So that would be awesome.
So
yeah, that's the direction it feels like the women's title is going in, is a rematch with Nyla Rose or a rematch with Penelope Ford at this point, because everybody else is hurt or not an established star.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nyla Rose, she was just on. No, she was just on Brandy Rhodes' shot of Brandy, and Brandy asked. No, this is a question. She asked her, who would you like? Who's your favorite like female like who, besides yourself that you'd want to like team up with? And one of the first persons she brought up was Big Swole, and then she also brought up Penelope and Allie, which I thought was interesting. Like, how would you guys like to see a matchup between or a team up? Is it a matchup? No,
Yeah,
a team up. Is it a matchup? With Nyla Rose and one of those against somebody else.
Nyla Rose and Big Swole at this point would make no sense. It's funny.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's funny that was the first name that she mentioned.
Yeah.
Because they're on opposite ends of the spectrum at this point.
It was recorded when Nyla was still champion. I don't know if that changed something, but like she had her belt in the video.
You could tell that they're just like friend. Like that's probably the friend thing, you know, and like they're friends in real life type of situation. But the rest of the women named, like it's interesting to think about, especially because we don't necessarily have a direction for the women's champion. But I wouldn't be mad if they tried to establish some type of tag team division at this point for the women. Because there's just nothing going on. They would have to, again, start incorporating more of these new faces that they've brought in during COVID for the jobber positions and actually elevate them a little bit. Abaddon, we said it was going to happen. The fact she wasn't on last week, we've now pretty much forgotten about everything she had going on for her. And Anna Jay, her story is
that was a COVID thing, right?
Yeah, but and you totally understand it, but at the same time it sucks. So maybe we'll see her in some capacity with the Dark Order segment next week. But still, it's unfortunate because those two women were being built up, but this match being so good almost overshadowed all of that too.
And they probably will have to hold off even another week now that we've announced that Fyter Fest is happening. You probably you're not going to have enough time to put people like that on.
Well, they actually, I would, if I'm them and you want to do a women's match on that show, you could do Abaddon versus Hikaru because that was a pretty interesting match that they ran for Dark a while back. It got a lot of people talking on Twitter. And would be a smart match to it would be kind of quick. But if you just did a women's battle royal or something, next week, oh shit, they don't have any time for that. You do it on Dark or something.
An 8-person battle royal.
Hey, they did a lumberjack match a week ago, so they're not afraid. But yeah, I don't know. I think that would be interesting. But you are right. Probably we won't see anything from them for a couple weeks, which is unfortunate. But if I was them, I would throw together that match somehow because that'd be a fun match for a couple weeks from now. Could make Abaddon look just as good as Penelope coming out of it. So. After that, we get Taz. He's doing his technique with Taz, runs down Moxley's offense, why it won't work with Cage. It was kind of weird getting this, and then later on getting the announcement that Moxley would be around. So,
no real thoughts on this. It was exactly what I expected it to be. It was fine. Taz is doing his job.
Mm-hmm.
Phil posted the tweet about like what would happen if Mox couldn't fight next week, and like is a video like from home a thing that they could do, like something that shows that he's like training because now he has to like figure out a different technique to beating him since he can't do whatever they were talking about.
Well, and that's something even commentary mentioned, like he's apparently can't train because he's just locked up in his house and doesn't have like he might have weights or something, but that's what commentary says, is he's not training either. It is just it makes it kind of like a downer on a match that I was really looking forward to, and it's weird because like Mox is supposed to be the face, and this isn't his fault, but it still makes you want to root against him. At least me, like I would rather see Cage win at this point. Like, I'm not mad at Mox that he's been off,
that's
but
crazy.
No, I had no takeaways from this other than when Taz did the little circle over Cage's fucking traps or whatever. They was like, "Whoa, look at that, amazing!" And I was
so
like,
big.
This is stupid.
We'll talk more about the Mox match in a little bit when we talk about Taz's promo. But yeah, we got that video. After that, we get Cody versus Jake Hager, and kind of in direct opposition to Hikaru making her opponents look better. Cody just doesn't do a lot for me in his matches against his opponents. His finishes have almost consistently been just bad to weird. Like,
Can I point out what is with this Cody Rhodes thing where he doesn't beat anybody? He never beats anybody clean. What is with the dusty finishes with Cody? Like, is it?
It's
It's
not
his
a
dad,
dusty
dude.
finish, bro. They
With-
would tell you that.
The bad
But
guy.
why did his brother get involved among other things that happened? Like that was something that really threw me off. Why is Dustin all of a sudden
I don't know.
like I know he has beef with Hager, but I mean
didn't hate this
it's kind
match,
of I
though.
guess it's
I'm gonna-
kind
I'm
of
gonna be
realistic,
honest.
but
I didn't hate it. It was like my least favorite probably because I knew who was going to win, and it was I think the second longest match, and that like by a very small margin. So like it, I don't know. I felt like I would have rather had some other matches on this card get the time that it got.
For a second, don't make fun of me. I thought that he won, that Hager won because he was cheering, and then I'm like, this is Cody's music. He did not win, this idiot. Like,
Man, I'm just like, I don't know how to feel about this match. Cody, time and time again, has these weird ass finishes where he doesn't really beat the guy, like the Shawn Spears figure 4 thing. First thing that comes to mind. We do it again on this elevated show. It wasn't even a bad match, man. If you had asked me of all the 5 matches advertised for tonight, the match I was looking forward to the least, it's this match. When it was announced weeks ago, I wasn't interested in it, and the fact that it was going to be built up. The press conference last week was funny. You know, it was a good segment. It didn't really make me want to see it. They had a good match. This was the best Jake Hager match that I've seen since he's wrestled in AEW. That's not really saying much, but
No,
it's not.
but
It's
you're
also
right.
not saying that it was like bad at by any means. It was a good match for him. It felt like he did get elevated a little bit, you know, because it was a better match than I expected. But then you kind of like go and piss it all away with this stupid finish. It feels like they're gonna go back and run it back and do it again, which I'm not really gonna complain. It's not like I want to see it, but at the same time, because they had a better than expected match, I also am not going to hate it as much as I would have if you told me, hey, this match is going to lead to a rematch.
Well,
if you told me that 3 weeks ago, I would have thrown up.
You know what my problem is? My problem is I had such low fucking expectations for this match that there's no way it couldn't have exceeded them in hindsight. So and maybe it wasn't a great match, but it was way better than what I thought it was going to be.
it can't be anything of a close to a good match if the finish is constantly just the shits. And it's like, how many times are we going to get one of these weird, like it's the same thing as the Darby finish, and that's like 2 out of 5 at least. I'm sure if I think harder about the other matches, they probably weren't very clean finishes either because he's not trying to beat the guy real bad. But like this one made no sense to me. If we're building to a rematch with Hager, why? Like I was ready to get past this so I could start believing in contenders against Cody, and instead I'm just gonna I will never believe that Hager's going to do shit in AEW because of how they've booked him as nothing more than like a lackey who's a big guy. And if he starts beating people, I'll just be annoyed because he sucks. Like it does nothing for me. Hager does nothing for me. So it's weird.
I'm not gonna like sit here and defend Jake Hager. I don't hate him as much as you, but I don't like him enough to go.
I like him.
"No,
I
you're
told you
wrong."
I want him to fucking
To
dominate
destroy
people
people.
and win, and he doesn't. So now he sucks. He's garbage. Like he's so bland. Like he's so like he's one dimensional, and it's so hard to enjoy the matchup when it just can't get very far. Especially if he's not
right.
doing like the MMA thing. It's like, what is his moveset? What does he do? Power bomb, body slam, like
Ankle lock.
Yeah, the ankle lock.
so it just took too long. After the match, Hager takes out, wasn't it Earl Hebner? I don't know for sure, but it
I
could have
don't
been.
remember. Yeah,
No,
think
I don't think it was. Was it? I don't know.
it was some geek, the guy with the bangs. Who? No.
Yeah, he had like.
All right, I believe you for sure. It could have been Earl in my head, but that would have at least made it a little better. If it's just some doofus like this, I don't know. Doesn't do much for
And then
me.
they were.
remember when Jericho called out Mike Tyson again? Like, why?
That was actually, at least there's, I mean, if they're not going to follow up on it, yes, I agree. Why? If there's actual, like, gonna be a fight between him and Mike Tyson, then I guess like
Yeah,
a fight.
it's so random.
But Jericho on commentary was never bad. Like, but I agree, it's definitely stupid if he's not ever going to interact with Mike Tyson again. But
Yeah.
we'll see. That could be the direction they're headed. Who knows? After Cody and Hager match, we get a Darby Allin video package. He says he's still not medically cleared, so he just does a bunch of skateboarding stunts. I would fire him immediately if this was my company. There's no reason to employ such a reckless individual.
Right? Like, oh, I'm not clear.
Darby's
More dangerous shit. Like, what?
Darby's video packages are always like charmingly stupid. And I enjoy them in that way, but
And,
yeah.
yeah, he was like, what is that? What is that? When you hang off he was ziplining drop kicks into people.
Yeah.
It was so fucking stupid.
He's lost so
rather
much
see
steam,
him-
man.
I would just rather see him wrestle a match than whatever he's been doing. We didn't even have a Tony Hawk cameo today, so
Yeah, they've
Tony
almost
Hawk.
gone too
Two in a row
far.
would
They've
would
almost
be
gone
like-
too far into this direction of like edgy skater dude because it's just like
yeah, now he's becoming like a one-dimensional character when he had mystery to him and he like
yeah.
had the whole thing going for him. You didn't know
He
what
doesn't
his
seem
character
like an
really
edgy,
was.
like emo goth guy. He just seems like a douchey skater.
Yeah.
Like
He is.
Yeah.
His character is what he seems on the surface, and that doesn't do it for me. When it seemed like he was a deeper character, that's what made it for me. Like, there's
Yeah.
more to this guy than just what he looks like, which is the emo goth skater,
loser. Like yeah, dude.
16-year-old high school kid, man.
Yeah, when there's nothing more in terms of depth, and he's just like, I'm not cleared, so I'm just reckless and I don't give a fuck.
Skateboard.
Welcome to
tricks.
Jackass. Like, I'm just not interested in that version of Darby, and it sucks because, like I said, if they had just sort of left it at the certain point where he's the guy driving around and skateboarding over a flaming car and carrying a body bag and seeming more like a creepy, scary individual than just a skater dude. Like, he's just a skater dude. There's nothing intimidating about who he is as an individual now that we know more. Now that we see him skating all the time, yes, you can get beat up, but you're still not that intimidated. There's nothing about you that is scary. Like, we don't look at skaters on the street and like, oh, I'm gonna get beat up.
I thought the video was cool, but like I get your point on like, yeah, like the skating is cool and like you're a good skater, but like add some more like characteristics to your character, like other than just I skateboard.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
it was cool. Like it was like that one trick. I wonder how many times it took for him to get that trick out, but I don't remember the last one when he was like, ooh. That was something. You guys know what I'm talking about?
No.
Like,
No, but I dig the sound effects, so we'll run with it. But yeah, I mean, Darby, at least he maintains like he's always on TV. But these type of video, it's almost like, I don't want to compare it, but if Joey was given this much production and stuff like this, he might be
No, I hear ya.
a lot more entertaining as well. I mean, Darby, I will say, is probably a better, more athletic wrestler at the end of the day. But yeah, I think that Joey could be a much more compelling character with this type of production, and Darby is not. Like it's been the same thing for like 5 videos now.
Well, I think the reason is he does it himself, right?
I don't know.
That's what-
If he does, then that's even
That's
better
what I
because it's
heard.
so great. Because it's not bad. I shouldn't say so great, but it's pretty high quality. So if he's doing it himself, then yeah, more people should do stuff like that. But he needs to get more like. And how do you get any more deeper than this now? Because now you're just the skater guy. Is someone gonna come and steal his skateboard? And,
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
Well, like
But-
when he had the thing with Sammy going, it like gave him some kind of story to make him look creepy, because he was like he rode Sammy on his skateboard or
Mhm.
like was like creepy.
He
Now it's
wasn't
just,
even
like-
really talking at that point.
The
Yeah,
beginning of his story it's like it's almost the whole story. You know, we thought there was more to it, but it's so surface level. There's no depth, and it's like it almost
Yeah,
makes him feel like a
that's what-
shallow kind of guy. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Who knows? And it's one of those situations where I don't know how much more they can at least go with him as being like a good guy. He has been bordering on that situation anyway, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. After that, we get Orange Cassidy coming out, joining commentary, or at least sitting next to the commentary booth. And this is just a setup for some type of situation between Jericho, of course, but we get Private Party taking on Santana and Ortiz. Private Party picking up the victory. This was essentially a non-announced number one contenders match, which makes me even more disappointed that Private Party won. But nonetheless, it sets up a decent enough match. These guys didn't look bad in this match at all. AJ, you and I had discussed the potential of these guys sort of holding this match back, and I can't say that they did.
No, it was very fluid. It was a solid match. Again, if it had more time, that'd be cool. If I knew it was going to be a number one contenders match, that'd be fucking cool.
Yeah.
Did they announce that beforehand?
I don't think so. No, they just mentioned it in the match, like, oh, this match could have title implications, and then 20 minutes later, they were like, hey, by the way, that match had title implications.
That would have been cool. That would have made this a lot more interesting. Because despite this being a good match, I was. Despite other than Cody and Hager, this was the one I really didn't care about because Sammy's obviously it was supposed to involve Sammy in some way and continue Sammy and Matt Hardy's thing, and that didn't happen for obvious reasons. But so because of that, it just felt like a broken match that's not what it was supposed to be, and so I couldn't really care about it that much. And also, Santana and Ortiz lost, so fuck that. But it was a good match. I'm not.
Well, I'm pissed. Why does the Dark Order keep getting fucked over? Because the Private Party's 5, Dark Order is 4. I'm pretty sure, and then the other 3 teams above them are all involved in some other bullshit. So why can't the Dark Order get a tag team title match? Why do they have to be the one sole undefeated team? Like, I mean, and fair enough, we don't necessarily want to make them lose right away on Fyter Fest, but still, I'm upset about that. And yeah, Private Party, like I said, though, this match wasn't bad. I think they hit their spots pretty well. What did you guys think of it, Phil?
I agree with AJ. Aside from the Hager-Cody match, this match didn't have any implications going into it. It didn't really do anything for me. I did mention on Twitter, like, either team could win, so that's something I like in wrestling when whoever is fighting, if you don't know who's going to win, obviously it makes it better. Mm-hmm. But, again, I didn't really care who won. I did have a preference, but it wasn't the end of the world if either team had won. I was more disappointed at the fact that Matt Hardy was there, but he didn't need to be. Like, what was the point of it? He didn't do it.
He's just a manager, man. He's transitioning into his Michael Hayes role.
I thought there would be some kind of surprise with Matt Hardy, that he would, like, maybe become a bad guy or something would happen with him.
He's going to join the Inner Circle?
Somebody on Twitter had me buying into the fact that he might turn heel and join the Inner Circle because Sammy isn't there, so they need another person. And then
how fucked up would that be of him to con Sammy into not being in the group? And then
the very selling point was he teams with Jericho, and then you got these 2 old guys as the old tag team, and that sounded like
that
money
sounds
to me,
awful. Ew. Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho as a tag team in 2020. Ew.
Shout out to that guy. I don't remember his.
I'm sorry.
poor
I
brother.
don't want to offend this person.
This man.
But I don't like it at all.
But I do have faith
that
that Private Party will have a good match next week. And if they were to decide to do the turn next week and put the belts on these two, I would imagine it would be like a short transitional run, but I wouldn't be mad about that.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
They've been elevated pretty decent, so.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's bound to happen eventually, and
I
don't know how you make it last until All Out, but you could.
If it wasn't Best Friends tonight, who got a better build than Private Party?
Yeah, that is
not
true.
Going to happen next week.
Best Friends.
I don't know. We'll get into it more. We'll get into it more at the end of the show. We got more time to talk about it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, after the match, we have Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy held apart from a brawl. I don't think Orange Cassidy really was trying to brawl. He was trying to go to the back. He didn't give a shit, but yeah, it was interesting. They do need to tone down the whole spread apart brawl, held apart from killing each other. Like, this wasn't a brawl, but it was close enough to what we see every week that it is becoming a trope. Like, it's not and if it doesn't slow down, it'll just get worse, and people will, it'll turn into like a meme. Like that's some real Impact shit. So. After that, we get Kenny Omega and Hangman interviewed. Hangman says that the best friends deserve their title shot, but when it's his titles on the line, the word deserve dries up. Kenny says every week they beat team after team with a goodbye and goodnight bang. Kenny, and they're right, so I like this promo. It adds a little bit more to the match, and these two are great. Like, the more of a dynamic we get with them as a unit, I like it, because they're obviously not friends, but they're both very, very good. And this is, I don't know, I think it was last show, so Phil, you weren't here, but I think that this tag team has served its purpose in elevating Hangman to that level of Kenny Omega. Like, they're both really main event star status characters now, and this tag team with Omega has helped do that for Hangman. Like, at one point this week I was thinking about a Hangman versus Okada match, and I don't feel like I would think about a match like that without him teaming with Omega. So it's done its purpose, so that's why I can see them combusting at any moment, because it's done. Like, what else can they do? What else do they need to do for Hangman? Like, he can now assert that role. Him in a feud with Omega, I don't know who comes out on top, because they've built him up so well. He's almost carried the team. He probably has a majority of their pinfalls, and like, he's never looked weak. He's never looked like he had to be carried. He's never even looked like an unloyal partner. So,
Yeah, I think when he got the pin, I said to Phil, I feel like Hangman always is the one that gets the pin in these tag team matches. I'm sure Kenny does too, and I know that Kenny's really good in singles also, but I feel like when they're in a tag team match, Hangman always just comes in at the last second and then has this momentum and gets this like adrenaline rush and just gets them out all the time.
Yeah, so it's great to see them not only performing in the ring, but performing with their promos as well. The last couple weeks have been great. So they then ran down the card for next week. We have Nyla Rose in action with a surprise. We have the Dark Order and Colt Cabana taking on SCU. Joey Janela facing Lance Archer. Private Party will face the winner of the tag team title matchup. And Orange Cassidy taking on Chris Jericho. And the main event, Young Bucks and FTR versus the Butcher, the Blade, and the Lucha Brothers. So a solid card for next week. Very, very interesting second week of Fyter Fest, but still without that main title match, it loses a lot of its luster.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that the order that this happened in was weird. All right, we had a really good promo with Kenny and Hangman, where Kenny kind of like is a little bit cocky, which is usually Hangman's role, and Hangman was a little bit more respectful about talking about their opponents. So it kind of made me think maybe something is going to happen. And then immediately after this, they run down next week's card and just kind of throw in, oh, hey, Private Party is going to face the winner of this match. And for me, it took all the air out of this main event for me, because it took away the mystique of what's going to happen. Is there going to be some big blow-off? When I saw the advertisement for that match, in my cynical brain, I was like, okay, I already know what's going to happen, so I just got to get through this main event. They're not going to throw me any curveballs. I know where this is going.
And how weird not to just announce it after the show. Like, you don't have to, and make this announcement during the show. Easily could promote it on social media or something like that. And I fortunately didn't hear this match be announced at that time. But when they were talking about it in the main event, it definitely led me to believe essentially the same thing you guys were saying. Like, if they were going to do it, they wouldn't do it this week now. They would do it next week, because they're building to a whole nother match. Like, to me, like, and again, I understand your thought process of they're not going to do it. But if they are going to do it, you're not going to do it this week and then have the best friends defend next week. You would have it happen next week if that was the plan at all. And who knows? I agree. I understand the skepticism, Phil. But like I said, I feel like this has run its course. They've done what they needed to do. So we'll get into it. We are getting to that match. I think we all have a lot to say about the feud between, or potential feud between Hangman and Kenny. But let's first talk about Taz's promo that he cut. This is the point where they announced Moxley would face Brian Cage at Fight for the Fallen, which is in 2 weeks. So they had to push the match out. But Taz comes out and just rips into Moxley, saying that he politicked his way out of the match. He says that he was negative on both of his tests, and if he decided to get his ass to work next week, he'd be tested again. He says that this is a case of one thing only, chicken shits.
He was being savage.
Yeah. and that's like, if for a situation like this, while it does take a lot of steam out of what's going on, Taz did a great job with this promo. So.
Oh yeah, this was really well done, despite how bad everything is right now with Fyter Fest and its card.
Just another reason to beat Mox, though. Like, he just doesn't look good going into this. He's had such a bad run as champion. It's not getting any better. He's constantly losing steam. Like, and this promo, it just kind of solidified it. Like, he could come to work next week and be tested and do the match. Like, some people on Twitter are like, well, Mox has to stay home and take care of his wife. Like, he can go to work for a couple hours. I'm sure she'll be all right. She's a strong, independent woman. I don't know, man. I think that if he's not sick, to push it out, like, I understand. And I kind of made mention of this, I think, on Monday's show, AJ, that they should at least have the foresight to make a decision this week, so that way if something happens next week, they're not fucked. But for all we know about coronavirus, he very easily could still end up sick the night of the show, the night of Fight for the Fallen or whatever. He could still show up to work that day, and because of the way that COVID stays in places and lingers in their house where he's staying, he very well could end up sick even after his wife is not sick. He could very well show up to work on the night of Fight for the Fallen, still be sick, and we push this match out for another week. And then what?
Wouldn't that be crazy that they've made it a special event? Fight for the Fallen. They've made it a special event, and then you have to push it back again?
Yeah.
How would you replace it?
At that point, you have to do an interim championship, don't you? Like
you would want them to. Well, especially because you could, if he's sick, it makes more sense to do an interim champion.
Okay,
so.
I would agree with you if there was a logical opponent for Cage to fight. Who comes to mind? Who comes to mind that would go up against him, and he would be a legitimate threat against Cage?
Wardlow.
The only person I can think of who's over enough, and I'm talking purely in overness because I don't want to see the match, is Matt Hardy because he's not doing anything.
No way, go away.
I know, that's what
go
I'm
to
saying.
sleep, log off,
to.
turn your fucking Skype off right now. No,
I'm thinking name value.
Jericho. That's something me and AJ had discussed. If he beats Orange Cassidy,
No.
Mike Tyson, bro, you don't think so? I would buy into that shit 110
The only
fucking
person I
percent.
really thought of right now, for some reason, is Jungle Boy, but you don't really want to see Jungle Boy
get
take
destroyed.
a loss.
I would want to see him get fucking mopped if he was in that match, and I love Jungle Boy, but if he's gonna fight Brian Cage right now in an interim title match, like, I wouldn't want to. He could get a long mopping, but he should still just get mopped and look like a resilient young man, but he just gets dominated. Like, he shouldn't do much to
And
Cage.
now that we're talking about it, I'm sick of seeing him in that role as the resilient guy who puts up a great fight, but he loses. Tired of it.
Won, brother. What the fuck is your problem?
Maybe like Brian Cage will just get like sick and tired of trying to get the like world champion. So like maybe
He'll just face Cody.
He'll go to the TNT title.
That would be talk about making Mox look like even more of a Trump champion. I don't want the main title. I want the TNT title now because this geek can't ever show up to his job.
To make Cody feel like a
big boy.
Mox just found out how good the unemployment benefits are, and he's staying home. So.
Stop, Taz.
They are good.
It's incredible, man. I just am so, and I was so hype a year ago for Mox in Fyter Fest in this whole situation, and then now here we are, and it's like he's the champion, and it's just not doing anything for me. It's like I need a whole refresher for Mox, and it's definitely not his fault. It's not like he's been a shitty character or anything. COVID has super fucked him, but it's just time to then, like, you can't come back from this. Eventually you're down so far that you need to just reset. You can't. How do you regain the momentum? Like, you would have to run through the whole heel roster, and I don't want to see that right now. So
something big has to happen.
He has to lose, and it's going to happen in 2 weeks.
Maybe.
Who knows? After
in a
this,
title match or just in a regular match?
In a title
Oh, yeah, the belt is coming off him. It's over. Mox is champions. His days are numbered. After this great promo, we get the Hangman and Kenny versus Best Friends match. This was a solid main event. Like I said, they definitely didn't not deliver, but it's a match that you could maybe see them doing again down the line or something. So maybe they didn't put it all out there. But it was still good. And Kenny Hangman matches are different because they always have a story incorporated within them, because you're always kind of waiting and watching and just watching their mannerisms. After the match, we have FTR come out to celebrate with them, and Hangman immediately takes the beer. It's almost as if he's talked to these guys already. He's already cool with them. Like, something has gone on behind closed doors with these guys because they're totally good. Meanwhile, Kenny's hesitant. When they go to cheers, Hangman immediately cheers. No hesitation, no time to think about it. And then he looks away from everything that's going on. He turns away from his friend and everything, and Kenny starts pouring out his beer. So there's just so much more going on to what's going on in the story than just the match we saw. So that was great. But the match, again, it wasn't bad. And there was a couple times, like I said, because I've been buying into the fact that maybe Hangman and Kenny would turn tonight, that maybe Best Friends could have won here. They had me buying it just a little bit. But
They did.
And Kenny almost missed that spot. He was supposed to break it up, and he was very close.
Yeah. And I agree. I was. They got me here a couple times, but it was a good match, like you said. I can't complain about it. It was it was the longest match on the card, even though it should have been longer. It was
That's the
definitely
downfall to
solid.
having a pay-per-view on TV. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Swear I wanted it to be on just a Saturday night as be our live special.
For me, though, the moment I saw FTR come out, I was like, if the announcement didn't sell it for me, this has sold it for me. They're not losing.
Yeah, because if somebody had turned there, what are we going to do at that point? They're just going to point and laugh. Like, they're out there for a reason to set something up.
I do almost prefer what they set up, though. This idea of Hangman with them has always made sense on paper, but how do you transition and make it actually make sense in the story? And they're kind of doing that. You see the stare down between the Elite and these guys, and I am excited.
I just would have preferred if FTR came out after the match had ended with the beers and ended it that way, instead of having them come out in the middle of the match where it's like, I know who's going to win now.
Yeah, I feel like
I didn't get that, but that's also because I guess I don't get it. But
I didn't get the vibe either, though. Like with them being out there, I at that point I did think there probably wouldn't be much of a turn, but at the same time, I who knows? Maybe they're there to support Hangman and align with Hangman. Like, and there were more teams scouting, so it less became like a situation of that. I was like, oh, okay, there's more teams out here who are scouting the match. Like, maybe something could still happen. But it did remove a lot of thoughts that could happen.
I feel like FTR is in 8 different storylines at once. They're feuding with
they're like the hot new toy, and it kind of makes sense because if think about it, I guess from a high school perspective, when there's a new kid, everybody wants to get to know them. Like in wrestling, you would expect everyone would want to wrestle the best team, and not just from a political backstage standpoint, but from a realistic standpoint. When there's a new fighter in UFC who has hype behind them, people want to fight them to either get their name on the board or elevate their name in some way. Yeah. So I like that it happens that way, but I agree. It's happened with a couple guys. Cody had that happen to him a lot early on where he was in 7 stories at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the main reason I didn't buy that the turn was coming this week is because the storyline has been so much more effective with things like what happened to close the show. When we have tension building between the teams, that's when the storyline really hits, We haven't had that in the past few weeks. They feel for once, they felt like a cohesive unit. Like they've been getting along. They haven't been having struggles. They've been drinking beer together. It's been a great time. If Hangman would have turned tonight, it would have felt a little out of place. But now we're getting back on track with building the storyline where every week we're going to have tension build a little bit, and it's finally going to come to a head. I think that's the reason why I didn't buy that it was going to happen tonight, because for the past month and a half, they've been such a good team.
Well, how long do you think they can tease the idea of him aligning with FTR? Like, how long do you think they can really draw that out? Because that really feels like where we're going rather than the the triple threat tag team match that I think we all thought that was a potential match,
Mhm.
but I really don't think it has as much potential to it now. I think that the way that they were separated at the end of the show is a very clear 3-3 and something that makes sense and feels like it should just happen, and has like that type of magic to it almost. They should do it, and it's probably, I don't think that they could drag it out for too long, maybe
Yeah.
Fighter, because they would want to do something at Fighter, or not Fighter, Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah.
But I just wouldn't be too shocked to see it next week. And if they did it next week, it would do even more for Private Party than it would have done for the Best Friends in terms of elevating them, making them an actual legitimate established team. Best Friends has a little bit more for them, even as non-champions. The Private Party just doesn't have a whole lot for them, but if they got a run as tag team champions, it would actually elevate them. And they have solid wins. Like I told AJ on Monday's show, a win over Pride and Powerful does a lot for them. So
You're
you
right.
combine that with the Young Bucks victory. How many more
I'm on the
teams are there in
fence.
AEW that they need to beat?
Yeah, I'm on the fence though, because they just won the belt, or they just won the match, and Hangman and Page, Hangman and Omega. At this point, it might be weird. Like, you might want to wait a little longer, not for the triple threat, or not the triple threat, the 3-way, but I don't know. You have a little bit of time here before All Out, and so I'm thinking now, if they're not doing it, maybe Phil's right. Maybe they're just going to wait to do it, and maybe they're going to do it at All Out for all I know. But then you have this 3-way going on, so I have no idea what's happening, and I kind of like
Because
that.
there's obviously like dissension in between Kenny and Hangman at this point. Like they're very clearly on separate sides. Hangman didn't immediately take his friend's side as he's pouring out this beer. He's very clearly valuing almost just a beer in a celebration between two
alcoholic.
guys. That more so, well, and they've almost downplayed that story a little bit more, which is, and either way, if they want to get back into that, that's fine, and that almost makes sense if you're saying it that way. Like, yeah, maybe beer does mean more to him than this friendship or whatever, but I think he just genuinely would have more of a connection with FTR than with Kenny and the Elite, and like so how could there possibly be a triple threat tag team match when they're both siding with a different team? You know what I mean? They're not even a team themselves. They're not even a unit themselves.
Yeah.
I hear you. You're both making good points, and I really don't know what's going to happen, but I think you're right.
Though. That's the best part of the story. Like, and it's already been a long story. The thing, like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be it wouldn't be rushed to make this decision this week or this month, and if they waited 2 more months, it wouldn't be a bad thing either. But that's where they've done a good job with it. But it does bear the question, like, because it doesn't seem like a matter of 3 teams vying to be the best team in the world. It seems to be a situation of 2 teams who want to be the best team in the world, and then 2 singles who want to be the best singles in the world.
I mean, also the card makes sense too, because if you do the turn and then you have FTR and Young Bucks have a blowout in the main event, then you have Kenny come out to help the Young Bucks, and then Adam Page can come out and go after Kenny Omega.
It could
and
even
join up
it
with
could even
FTR.
be like when
they lost the match,
like a
and
turn
didn't turn
they
there.
tease early on the show where they lose the titles, they don't turn, and you're like, oh, okay, it's not happening, and then it happens in the main. You're right, but if Phil is just gonna tell us we're dumb and that it's never happening, so we'll see.
Never.
We'll see.
I would not have been surprised if they got into a fight tonight. I really thought that they could have. Because after last week when they said that thing about we're not even best friends, like we're not even friends, I was like, wow, they need to stop this matchup right now. I wouldn't have been surprised if it happened today, but definitely next week. I feel like it would just get so boring and dragged out, but if they keep doing it every week, we know
There's just
that
no reason for Hangman to necessarily side with Kenny in this drama. Like, they don't have a history of being friends. So if Kenny has a problem with 2 people that Hangman is apparently cool with, I imagine that Hangman is probably going to choose the people he's cool with, not the guy that, despite the fact they're paired up, he's still not very cool with him. Like there's never been an indication of that. Like he seemed so much more casual and cool around FTR in the 3 minutes he was with them than he does when he's portrayed as a teammate with Kenny. It was very weird. It's like because I rewatched it because I was trying to get a GIF. And it just was very interesting, like the way, and obviously it's all like storytelling and whatnot, but the way that Hangman is portraying himself as like very buddy with these guys, it's interesting. Like I don't see it taking too long for him to align with them and turn, and then you have the potential for a 6-man, and you do like there's so much you could do. So who knows? I mean, and they could do that 6-man as early as Fight for the Fallen if they turn next week. I'm not expecting it, and I feel before you get all worked up about me predicting something crazy, I wouldn't be too shocked. Like if they did the turn next week, they easily could do the 6-man, not even go all out, make it relatively short, and then build to all out off of that. So who knows? They need something for Fight for the Fallen. Well, I mean, I guess not. They have a title match.
Maybe.
Overall, though, not a bad episode of Fyter Fest or Dynamite, whatever you want to call it. If it was Dynamite, it would be a great episode. If it's a pay-per-view level show, it was just average.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's
but it
fair.
was good advancement to that. Like when the last story, and I guess that's something we have to consider when the Hangman and Omega story really starts blowing up. We're gonna have to appreciate moments like this because this is what built to that. We could never have that without these little pieces, you know what I mean? It's all part of the puzzle. So
yeah, speaking of little pieces, they showed Britt Baker for like 2 seconds for some reason. There wasn't even a story to that. It was like funny because I had just said, where's Britt Baker? She hasn't not been on a show and for a long time. I feel like she's been on almost every week, and
next week is stacked, so how do you have time for her, you know?
Yeah, I just thought it was weird, like why, I guess she's there, but like, so show her just to show her, but there wasn't any reason to, really. It was like a 2-second shot of her just sitting there, and then that was it, really.
Yeah. But overall, they did do a good enough job for the women's division, I think, tonight, that the lack of Britt Baker, it's okay. But a decent show. Again, it's hard. I wanted to be like it was the best ever, but and that's how they tried to hype it to be. But it wasn't bad. Next week is going to be interesting, but I don't know. It's weird. The fact that they just threw in that tag title match, it doesn't add a whole lot to me from the fact that we lost the world title match. So it doesn't have that feel of this major ending event. I don't know.
I don't know. I enjoyed the show, like top to bottom. I didn't hate any. Like, I was a little bored during Cody and Hager, and that's about it. But other than that, it was fine. It was a good show.
There was exciting parts in that one where Jake Hager's wife
were
Cody in the face and stepped on him when he was outside of the ring. I thought that was pretty funny, at least. Must-see moments.
Yeah. So that was overall. There was definitely some must-see moments tonight, and that's the thing about Fyter Fest too, is it's sort of like a stopgap, and the same thing as Fight for the Fallen. That's why I'm shocked that they're doing it right away, because you would think they would want to do something in like August, but September isn't too far away, so the next pay-per-view is only about 2.5 months away. But yeah, I mean that should tell you right there, Phil. It's coming, man. There's no way it's not coming soon.
I thought at least one title would be taken away. I guess it's cool that everyone kept their title, but...
And I'm sure that's why it felt like an underwhelming show. You had 3 title matches and everybody defended.
Yeah.
There was no shocking result, really.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's okay, but it's when we have 3 title matches on one show and then we take away the main title match from the next show and just replace it with kind of a filler title match, that's what fucks everything all up. But... they're victims to the circumstance, so it's not the end of the world. But we have covered everything for this week's Dynamite. AJ, go ahead and plug your social media first.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy.
See, Phil, that's how you do it. Now it's your turn.
Is it right below me?
Nah, it's above you, brother.
All right, so just look above. And
now I
then,
moved it down
Like-
below. I moved it below now.
what about the blind followers? Fuck 'em.
Oh wow!
Ah.
Turning heel on the blind, brother.
This is a podcast. What do you think blind
for
people
our
do on the
blind
internet?
brothers, you can follow Phil at Philip Domino. That's PhillipDimino. And Kira, where can they find you on Twitter?
And my name is Kira_Slater at Twitter. Huh? Is that right? Did I say
At
that?
gmail.com.
Damn,
No.
that's rough.
No, it's just at Kira_Slater on Twitter.
Dang, I got the wrong Twitter handle for you on here, so that's all right. Anyways,
You tweeted about it right on the podcast, so that's the one.
that's the one. If you guys want to follow Kira, find her on the All Elite Podcast, which you can find us on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/All Elite Pod. You can find us on Instagram at All Elite Everything and YouTube at youtube.com/All Elite Podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. And shout out to oh man, I can't remember your name off the top of my head, good brother, but you've been commenting back to us every week and letting us know, giving us some feedback, and we always appreciate that. So I have to shout him out. No, AJ, talk for a minute while I find his name. We're giving a shout out, bro. I'm not just going to sit here and be like, I don't know his name. Frankie Moda, my brother Frankie Moda. See, shout out to Frankie, always commenting, giving us some feedback, giving Kira some good feedback on being new to co-hosting, and just letting us know what he thinks about what's going on in AEW. So that's cool. We always appreciate the feedback. If you're watching, comment. We'll give you a shout out. Until next week, thank you guys for tuning in. See ya.
Bye.